Hello, welcome to Soulprint Intuitive Tarot. It is August 5th. This video is going to focus on Canada. There's a couple things I want to check out. Some of my Canadian viewers have been asking, and since I'm Canadian, you know. So tomorrow, there's going to be a video coming out on the U.S. political situation. And I'm going to be looking sort of haphazardly at several figures that are starting to gain, maybe a little bit more attention in ways that they wish perhaps they weren't. So that's tomorrow. Today, I'm just going to be taking a broad overview. I'm specifically going to be looking at the provinces of Alberta and Ontario. And for any, people who are outside of Canada, who wonder sort of why I'm always focused on those two provinces, it's because those two provinces have premiers who, in their heart of hearts, want to be that guy. And so that creates a bit of a, problem. So recently, like literally in the last 2 weeks, or week and a half, the Alberta government has decided that they're not going to do any more contact tracing. People who test positive for COVID don't need to isolate. We're something like 66% of the population is double vaccinated, and that just should be good enough. They are meeting a firestorm of opposition, and like Abbott and like DeSantis, they just get up there and they say stuff, and you hear the words coming out of their mouth, but it defies logic to actually understand what the heck they just said, right? I mean, it's like a gobbledygook of stuff to just try to distract. And, frankly, Ontario is also kind of with that same situation. I don't know how much has been infected. I think parts of it are re-locked down. But, Ontario just has a massive population. So there's that. So I'm actually going to do, I think, most of this reading using my pendulum. And, then we'll see, I'll pull in the cards to see if I can drill down and get some answers. So right now, Trudeau is, he's got about, I think it's like 36% support. And given that we have 5 political parties in this country, that's like not bad. And the Conservative Party has, I think, 29 something percent. So they're out ahead. And those are like the 2 main parties. So I want to take, and I have to tell you, I don't know when the next election is. It's sort of sad that I actually know when the next American election is before I know when the Canadian one is. But for some reason, I think it should be coming up at some point this year or early next. For some reason, I keep thinking the fall. So I want to just ask a couple basic questions. So the first question, okay, Pendulum says it's ready to talk. Anybody that's new to this channel, the pendulum will go back and forth for yes, pendulum show me no, and it goes into a circle. And when you see it just going side to side, it means it's ready to talk. And for those of you, the pendulum and I have a very, very tight energetic relationship. So I get answers very quickly, and they're also fairly accurate. Okay, so here we go. Is Trudeau going to be reelected for the next election? Is that going to happen? Is he going to be reelected? Okay, so that's a yes. So then the next question becomes, is he reelected with a majority government? Okay, so if you can see, it is a really small yes. It's yes, but it's sort of, well, So then the next question is it going to be a small majority? Is that what he's going to end up with? Is a small majority? Yeah. Okay. And so the way it works is he's going to have to still make really nice friends, not so much with the Conservatives because they're so philosophically just opposed to each other. conservatives are Republicans, liberals are Democrats. So the NDP are sort of, they kind of walk the middle. They're definitely more, in fact, that's not accurate. That's not an accurate statement. The NDP in many ways are more left than the liberals. And so the liberals and the NDP tend to, be able to work cohesively together. So they're still going to need the NDP support because, even with a majority, if it's a small majority, then the NDP and the conservatives can sort of come together and block you. So there's that. So I guess that's good news because, some people don't like what he's done. Some people would love what he's done. But the reality is he's done a pretty darn good job of keeping Canadians safe, locking down things quickly as they needed to be locked down. And frankly, creating a lot of sort of monetary incentives for people to keep themselves safe first. So it looks as if that's going to perhaps come back as a little bit of good karma for him. Now, let's start with Ontario. And I don't know, I have not one clue when the Ontario election is, but let's just broadly ask, at this point, does it look like Ford is going to be re-elected Premier of Ontario? Yeah, no, that's a pretty big no. Yeah. So is Ontario looking to bring in a Liberal government? No. Are they looking to bring in an NDP government? Yes. So that's interesting. I guess we'll see what happens there. Are the schools going to be able to reopen full-time with full students present come September? Particularly, I'm talking about, K to 12. Okay, so yes. Are there going to be, mask mandates, et cetera, put into place? Are they still going to be sort of following the COVID guidelines that were in place towards the end of the school year before the summer break here? Yeah. So it looks at this point anyways, and for most people in Canada, that is, I think September 7th, they all go back to school, like sort of officially, or somewhere near around about that. So it looks like, yeah, we can sort of hope that our students get back to school because God Almighty, it's hard on them, but they need to be safe. Okay. Are those schools likely to stay opened through the fall semester into winter? Okay, so yes, so that's looking really positive. And it's interesting because you have that variant that is just really, really taking over the headlines, right? Because it's so contagious and it's so fast, right? So are just generally speaking in Ontario, are restrictions likely to stay in place to some degree or another to continue to combat that variant and continue to keep people safe? Yes. Okay. So it looks like Ontario's going to be, marching towards normality, whatever that is, cautiously. Let's take a look at Alberta. So in Alberta, we really only have two parties. The Liberals are sort of a non-issue. Alberta is often referred to as the Texas of Canada. And unfortunately, sometimes that really, really can be kind of true in terms of attitudes. But Premier Kenney currently is enjoying a popularity rating or an approval rating of like 30%. People who voted for him are absolutely irate. And he, like other politicians that we know, he has been listening to a small but very vocal group of people as opposed to the majority of people and what the majority want. So first question is, because we're starting to get a little concerned about Delta. So is Alberta going to experience a surge? Yeah, it is. Is Alberta, okay, first, is Kenny going to reverse his policy on the restrictions that were like just announced that they were being lifted a week and a half ago? Yeah, it looks like he's going to back down from that. Okay. Is he likely to be reelected? I believe our provincial election is like 2.5 years or so from now. Is he likely to hold his seat? Yeah, no. Okay. Now the leader of the NDP, which is the other more powerful party here, and it's interesting, right? Because you have sort of really conservative right, and then you don't even have sort of center left. You have sort of more left. So it's really the dynamics in this province are really interesting, right? So Rachel Notley is the current leader of the NDP party. She was premier before Kenny. And for those of you who don't know, what Kenny did was he campaigned on a story about how she had blown up the deficit. And it was it was about 6 or 7 months after he won the election that they did bother to mention that his numbers were just fabricated. So everybody sort of feels or some people feel on some level that she sort of got, booted out of office unjustly. Is Rachel Notley likely to still be head of the NDP party for the next election? Okay. And is she likely to win the premier's seat? Okay. It's interesting because we are neighbor British Columbia. And British Columbia is so much more populated than Alberta, and yet we have significantly more cases and have had like pretty much from the get-go. And for the most part, BC tends to seem to jump on and put restrictions into place or not loosen up quite the way Kenny did here. And literally, there are stories about people from Alberta with Alberta license plates driving into BC and really just not getting a very welcome, because they don't want the crap crossing their border, and you kind of can't blame them. Okay, school. Let's talk about schools. Are kids K to 12, are they going to be able to go back to school in September? Yes. Okay. Are they going to be staying in school throughout the fall semester? Yes. Are there going to be restrictions in place to keep the kids and the staff safe? Yes. Okay. So I think I'm going to do just sort of a general question with the cards and just take a look and see just overall how Canada's doing right now. So, come on down, I have a question. Alrighty, here we go. Current Canadian trajectory, current Canadian trajectory, current Canadian trajectory. Okay. So what you've got here right now is a situation that, for the most part, you have sort of a country that is standing, I guess firm is the word I'm looking for. Sort of a country where, rules and regulations, et cetera, tend to be followed. There isn't a lot of pushback, or certainly not pushback in significant numbers. And that's actually one of the things that has allowed this country to kind of just stay a little bit buffeted. It was very expensive. What went on here and how the government stepped in. And listen, I am the last person to begrudge anybody a penny. But it really was expensive. And so at some point, there's going to need to be, some sort of hard decisions made about how that money is going to sort of get returned to the coffers. And make no mistake, there are people on the left who are really, really going to try to push their agenda. The problem is that history has shown in the last year and a half that every time the left comes on a little too strong, then you end up with a backlash, whether that is because you have more people getting sick, or whether that is because, people just are sick and tired of the way they sort of are, in some ways, really, really trying to mimic that sort of Republican attitude. And it doesn't go well here. We're just a very different country. We may be neighbors, but, the attitudes are quite different. And so that real push doesn't tend to go well. Listen, and I'm not saying that there isn't racism here and prejudice here. Of course there is. But what I'm saying is that there's just, people are just simply held to account more, okay? And I will tell you that this particular card is talking about the children who were taken away from their homes and put into the schools. And that situation is going to continue to unfold, but it feels like in this period of time, not that the worst is over, as much as much as some of the other residential schools are just, they're going to be slower to find stuff, or slower to kind of get moving. So what it feels like is sort of that there was all of this really, really bad news, almost back to back to back, and it feels kind of like there's a pause. But that is going to continue to move forward, because there, unfortunately, are more burial sites left to be found. And that becomes, frankly, another problem that Canada really, really has to figure out how to deal with, and figure out how to actually make reconciliation work and be effective. But keep in mind, there have been successes, okay? There have been, companies sort of were able to kind of hang on over the bad bumps. Not all of them. Tons and tons and tons of small businesses are gone. But, they were sort of able to just hang on. And so I guess in some ways what I'm trying to say is that we're not in terrible, terrible shape, but definitely it's going to be a heavy load to carry. It really is. And, honestly, people's memories are short. And, it's like, on the one hand, when the government is sending you that check every month to tell you to stay at home and don't go to work, you're just going to collect unemployment. That's great. But then in 18 months, or 24 months, Are they going to actually remember getting those checks, or are they just going to now remember that we have a really high deficit? So, it's always going to be a bit of a balance. Ultimately, the majority, I guess I want to say, is going to rule. And it really feels like, even though there's some real sort of bullying behavior that has been going on, as I said, especially with some of the more conservative politicians, they're going to get pushed back a little bit. They really are. And they're going to have some explaining to do, and they're not really going to be able to explain it. And they're going to find themselves a little bit trapped by their own behavior and really, frankly, called to account. So we have a road ahead of us. Some recovery is going to go quickly. Some is going to take a while. There's going to be, it's going to be a gradual return. And we'll see if, Canadians can sort of ride it out and continue to do what needs to be done, because it's not just one situation, right? I mean, there's a whole bunch of things on our plate in this country, just like there are in every other country. And so it really is a matter of persevering and staying positive and, continuing to stay active with your local, provincial, federal government. It is important that you stay involved. And I get that's a fine thing for me to say when I can't tell you when the federal election is. My bad. We're going to hang in there. That's the bottom line. We're going to keep hanging in there, and we're going to keep on taking one step in front of the other. And people are getting more and more vocal about pushing back against what they do and don't like. And that's going to start really having some significant impact on some of the decisions that are being made. But the government is holding. It's holding. And it's forever changed. People who live in Canada, just like people who live in every other country, have been forever changed by this experience. And there's been a lot of pain and suffering. Okay, well, that wasn't sort of quite as optimistic as I normally am. But, there you have it, right? I mean, this was not an easy road we have traveled for the last year and a half. And it's not like we're going to just turn some magical corner and it's going to be wonderful. It's going to take time to recover. And, I mean, it's human nature, right? It's like, and I'm going to use this example only because it's the first one that popped into my head, because I am actually kind of trying to deal with a few COVID pounds that I gained. Well, isolation pounds, I guess we should call them that. But it's like, okay, well, it took you a year and a half to gain that weight, but I want it gone by next Tuesday, right? It's sort of human nature, right? It's like we can appreciate it takes a long time to get somewhere, especially when it's like something like this. But boy, oh boy, when we're tired of it, we want it fixed, and we want it fixed yesterday, and it's just not going to happen that way. So there you have it. Okay, so for any other viewers from every other country who sat through this, thank you so much. I appreciate the support. And for my Canadians, my fellow Canadians, we're just going to hang in there. We're going to just keep on moving forward one step at a time. We're going to do what we can to keep ourselves, our neighbors, our families, and our community safe. And we're going to continue to have each other's backs, because that's what we do. Until next time, take care, be well. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.